Well, thank you, Casey. Thank you, everyone here, for joining me. My name is Joel Flory. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Visco. Visco was founded a little over 7 years ago in 2011, really with the premise, our mission is to help people fall in love with their creativity. We do this by building creative tools in a community driven by self-expression. And today, talking around with the growth stage and kind of the mindset of like how to grow as an entrepreneur, wanted to first step back a little bit into the early days and kind of set the context, because I think it's really important. And I think for many of you that are founding companies, I wore every hat possible. I was product, HR, finance, legal, support, social media. Went so far even as I was our janitor, because I'd been a janitor growing up, and that was a way to save money, and I'd bring my 2 daughters in to the office on the weekend and we'd mop the floors. But I think there was this really important shift that happened in these early days. When you do everything, you end up being a bottleneck for everything. And I think one of the most, and I didn't realize this, I think it was something that, oh no, this is all gonna be great. We were about 50 employees, and someone on our team's like, we should hire a head of people. And I was like, that's a waste, like we need more people building things. And like, no, trust me, Joel. And little did I know this person was knowing that I needed work, but they were really encouraging that we hire this head of people. And without a doubt, it was the best decision that we ever made. And I think for any of you entrepreneurs out there, any of you CEOs, you can never hire a head of people too early. I think that's my first tip, because how we look at Visco, the what is equal to the how. What we build, it's equally important how we build it, how we work together. And so by bringing in, her name's Katie Shields, we started talking about how are we going to scale. And I was like, oh, there's this problem in this area, there's this problem in this area. And she's like, let's start with you. And it was like, I think a very difficult thing. And I think every founder and every CEO needs someone on their team that can really be honest with them, very direct. And said, if we're going to scale the business, you yourself have to scale. And this is really the topic that I think was, at first I was like, yeah, okay. And I heard her, but I didn't. And I was listening, but not really. And it was, I knew these other people on our team needed work, and I wanted them to have coaches, and it was like, let's lead by example. And I still remember the first day I got the feedback from a 360 review. I literally went home, crawled up in a ball on the floor at my house, and I was like, I'm done. Like, this is crazy. And my wife, as ever wise as she is, said, at least you have people around you that care enough to give direct feedback. Like, this is feedback that someone's giving to you because they want to see you improve, because they care about you. And it was that shift of like, wow, okay, And I think to take that feedback, and I think if any of you have ever gone through a 360 review, the first time is really overwhelming. And what I really encourage you to do is when you take that feedback, figure out what are the few things that you're going to focus on. And I heard some really clear themes that I was the bottleneck, that I was not creating enough space for people to take ownership of areas at Visco. Everything required my decision on it. And also that I had competing priorities, that my life was out of whack, if you will. And I think for me, it really came down to what is my focus. So it started with me personally. I read a great book that I highly recommend everyone reads if you haven't, called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. And in this book really talked about what are my personal priorities. And for me, I have to take care of myself before I can do anything else. And when I take care of myself, then I can take care of my family. And once I've taken care of my family, I can then take care of Visco. And I focus on those 3 things. And everything else I say no to, if it doesn't involve one of those 3 things. So anything that if friends want to hang out, it has to be with my family, or it has to be around development for myself and working out, staying fit, staying mentally sharp. And out of that, the priorities for Visco, I had to figure out what I was going to focus on. What were the areas that I, as a leader at Visco, was going to dive into? And I set these, and these may or may not. I would really encourage you all to check these on your priorities, because I've found as I started to talk to people, as a CEO of a growth stage company, really falls in line with this. Number 1 is build the team. If I do not have the right people around me and the right people owning areas of Visco, everything else will fall apart. So the first is hiring the right people. And this is my number one priority. If, as a CEO, if recruiting and building your team is not your top priority, I'd really ask yourself why. And really ask yourself, as I talk with our recruiters, they're like, man, we're not used to having such great involvement, but building your team is the number one step. Second step for me is growing the team. Stepping back to kind of this strategic advantage of how you work. There's another great book, Patrick Lencioni. I don't know if anyone's read 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Anyone? No? Okay, I saw a hand up there. I recommend that, and he has a follow-up book that's called The Advantage. And his whole point is, as a company, especially as a growth company, your greatest advantage is not your product or your technology, it's your people and how well you work together. Is everyone clearly aligned? Do they know where you're going? Do they know why? Do they know the purpose? And so at Visco, we're guided by a series of guiding principles for what we do and a series of core values for how we do it. And so for me, my focus is ensuring that we as a team grow and that we're aligned around that. My third focus is setting the vision. And by setting the vision, it's not setting the vision and how we intend to get there. And I think that was a really difficult lesson for me to learn as a very product-minded co-founder and CEO. I wanted to say, and the product needs to look like this, and the feature needs to look like this. And it ended up being that we were creating this very narrow-focused product. And as we've scaled, I realized I'm no longer our core demographic. Over 75% of Visco's users are under the age of 25. 80% are outside the US. I definitely don't meet either of those. So as we build as a consumer-centric, how do we move from my intuition to understanding the consumer needs? And along with setting that vision, the big part of my next point is you have to create space for people to take ownership. If you tell everyone how to do their job and what to build and all the details, you don't allow for people to take areas of ownership. And so for me, I found that I have to create this space between myself and the rest of the team. I have to set this vision, what it looks like when we get there, paint that picture of how it aligns to our mission, and then really ask the right questions that help drives the team to build a plan to get there. And then my last area of focus is amplify Visco. Tell the story, share the dream. It's one of the reasons I'm here. I want to speak at a goal of speaking at 4 conferences this year, working more with PR, and really networking and sharing the dream and the vision of why Visco. And if it's not one of those 4 things, one of 2 things is going to happen. I'm either going to say no, or I'm going to delegate. And that's been a really big shift because as a co-founder and CEO and trying to do everything, I realized I did nothing well. And so if it's not one of those 4 areas, my entire team knows, oh, don't even ask Joel to do it or pass this on. Who's the best person to pass this on to? And what that's done is, and this is the focus, this is a lot of working from to. We have from being in the weeds to elevate to lead. And as a CEO and founder and any executive and any leader, the more space you create between you and your direct reports, it gives them more areas of opportunity for ownership to grow. And you see this environment in your company where people are thinking like an owner. They're thinking like it's their company. And that is when great things happen. When they're not needing to ask, what should we do at this point? They have a clear understanding of where you're going as a company, the vision, and they're empowered to build how to get there. And so some things that I encourage you to do as you're thinking about how to elevate to lead. It really was focusing on developing you. Read. This is something that as I talk to other CEOs and as I try and find people that have gone ahead of me and run companies at a greater scale, we're at around 110 employees today. I have found that they are constantly reading. Another thing is be open to feedback, seek it out. This is something where this notion of I don't know if have any of you read the book Mindset? And kind of focus around a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. This is another really important topic. That fixed mindset is what caused me to curl up in a ball and read this feedback and be like, I can't do this. I have too much to work on. I don't know where to start. The growth mindset is, how am I going to move forward day by day? How am I going to, as one of our core values, always moving forward? When faced with a problem, how am I going to find a way around it? How am I going to find a way through it? Hire a coach. This is something that I mentioned, is such a key component to helping you along because you need someone that's listening, someone that's hearing, and as a CEO, it's very lonely. I mean, the reality is you always have to be on. You always have to have the answer. And it's a really lonely space to be in. And so having an executive coach, someone that you can talk to, work on a plan, help you strategize, is something I really encourage. Advisors are another phenomenal opportunity. If you're not taking advantage of strategic advisors, finding people with core specific skill sets. Just brought on someone that was the head of strategy for Nike as an advisor. Really excited about. And this is an area where you can go and, hey, I have this idea, I'm working through this problem, and they have a specific core skill set. And so really, all of these things add up. Continuing to be focused on elevating the lead, create space, because when you do, great things happen. And that's really the skill set that you need to have in order to be a CEO or a founder leading a company in growth stage. So with that, that's it. So thank you.